Well, this is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league. Along with James Westling, I am Ari Temkin on social at James Westling. You can get me at Ari Sports. And the top of the Big 12 is eating itself, perhaps. But Iowa State was eating on Saturday at home. Gets their biggest win ever at home against Kansas. And now they welcome in Houston for Big Monday. And joining us now to talk about Saturday's game and preview tonight's game is John Walters, the voice of the Iowa State Cyclones. John, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Doing very well, thank you. Before we talk about tonight's game, let's talk about Saturday. And I guess this is life of the Big 12 right now. The backloaded schedules give us Iowa State hosting Kansas and Houston on Saturday and Monday. So not the easiest stretch of basketball here, John.
No, I'm having a really hard time thinking that this was a coincidence, that all these Big 12 powers are facing each other in the final couple of weeks of the season. And I do think it's great. I think one thing it allowed was for those programs that are, I think, clearly the best 5 or 6 in the league this year to kind of lift themselves up in the early portion of the schedule and get a lot of wins and have great resumes so when they do face each other and beat the heck out of each other, it doesn't hurt them as much. But at the same time, boy, these matchups are getting down the stretch. I think it's just what the Big 12 wanted, and it really puts a great spotlight on the league. And these games are incredible. I mean, for Iowa State to go from Kansas 2 nights ago to Houston tonight is just amazing in Hilton Coliseum. It's going to be maybe the most amazing, 72-hour period in Hilton Coliseum. And there's been some great ones. But to have those two programs come in, both top 10 teams, facing a top 10 team in Iowa State, and the environment was just incredible the other day, and I know it will be again tonight.
Yeah, there's been 852 games played at Hilton Coliseum all time over the last 55 years. This is the first time ever that there's been back-to-back top 10 opponents playing in Ames, which is incredible.
Against a top 10 Iowa State team, and that's amazing. That is amazing. Yeah, back-to-back top 10 games, you're saying. Yeah, that's incredible. And it's a great place to do it. I mean, if you're going to have an environment for that kind of a setting, you can't do much better than Hilton Coliseum. So I think the league will be on full display here tonight, and people will really enjoy the entertainment value of this game.
Yeah. All right, so Saturday's game, Iowa State just did such a good job defensively in the first half against Kansas. They built the 10-point lead, and then, John, the extending into the 20-point lead in the early part of the second half, Kansas just didn't know what hit them. What do you think was the difference here? Was it just defense and three-point shooting?
Well, the defense was what kept Iowa State in the game for sure early because they didn't start particularly well offensively. Right. They were 1 for their first 10 from the floor, and you're looking up, they're 1 for 10. And they're only down 4 points. They're down 6-2 about 8 minutes into the game. So their defense was absolutely keeping them in it. And the great part was that even as the offense did start to click a little bit, that defense never let up. It was there for the full 40 minutes. It was a great defensive effort. And when Iowa State's locked in like that defensively, they can be really tough to beat. And they have enough offense this year. I think it's a little bit different than some Iowa State teams in the past where you had to completely depend on the defense in TJ's early years at Iowa State. And this year's team is better offensively, so if you can just do both, you're going to have a great chance to win against anybody. And so that's the challenge again tonight, though, because Houston's really good offensively this year, too, and they're always elite defensively, so the two teams are very similar in that regard. And so it's going to be an awesome challenge tonight. But, to beat Kansas like they did, to hold them to 56, especially at full strength with Peterson. I think Connecticut was the only other school that held Kansas to 56 this year. Every other game they've been way higher than that in scoring, and so it was an elite job defensively for 40 minutes by Iowa State.
John, what's the difference between what you've seen? I mean, Iowa State's still been really good on the road this year, but that's where their losses have occurred. So what's the difference between the road showings and the home showings in terms of the X's and O's? Is it just the shots aren't falling as much, or is it turnovers or defensive breakdowns? What would you identify?
A little bit of all, but the turnovers have been especially costly in the 3 road losses. And I would just say this, you're not going to be at your peak every single day. I think that's the problem in this league. If you're not at your peak or pretty close to it, you're going to get beat, especially on the road, because there's so many good teams in the league. And so, I think it'll be very hard for anybody to go undefeated on the road in the Big 12. I think that's almost impossible. I think everybody will probably have, 2 or 3 road losses. And Iowa State's had 3 already. They need to try to avoid a 4th, although there's some real landmines out there coming up with BYU and Arizona still on the schedule on the road. So, but yeah, I think, if you were able to be at your peak every single day, great, but you're just not. And Iowa State didn't play particularly well at TCU about a week ago. The great thing about this team is that when they have had those moments, they've been able to kind of reset and get refocused on what they do. And I think that this year's team has a bunch of really good parts, but I think all those individual players realize they're better together. And when they get that ball moving, everybody's touching it on a possession, everybody's working together and switching defensively, and they're just locked in, and you can really see it like you could the other day against Kansas. That's when Iowa State's really, really good. And we haven't seen that sometimes on the road. And I don't think it's because anybody's not trying to do that. It's just, TCU is a very good defensive team, and they were trying to take some things away. They were making Lipsy give up the ball early in possessions, and they did a good job forcing Iowa State into turnovers and then took advantage of it. But Iowa State still had a 5-point lead with 2 minutes to go and just couldn't close the game. And Iowa State has not been involved in very many close games, really. I mean, they had a game like that was down back and forth right to the wire against St. John's out in Las Vegas. But other than that, they haven't had a game that before TCU where it was a possession game at the end. Yes, Baylor got back to within 3, but they were down 18-19. And same with Iowa. They got it back to 4, but they were down 18-19. So they never really felt like that threat was fully there in those 2 games. But really, Iowa State just has not been involved in a lot of close games. They've been blowing teams out if they've been winning, and they got beat pretty soundly a couple times that they lost. And so it's strange that they really only had 2 games all year that have kind of come down to the wire.
Yeah, well said. Who's the most important player for Iowa State?
Great question. I mean, because there's a big difference between the best player, the most important player, maybe the most valuable player.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and I think for Iowa State, the most important player is Tamin Lipsey, just because he's the 4-year starter. He's the Ames kid that has been the rock of this program ever since the day TJ came in. He signed Tamin immediately when he took the job. And for him to spend his whole career here, and just the way it's happened and the way it's unfolded, he was supposed to be behind Tyrese Hunter, and then he transferred out, and so it was all of a sudden, Tamin, you're the guy, as a freshman. And there were some growing pains, but he really had a great freshman year, really came back with a tremendous sophomore year, and here he is a senior, and I feel like he is the heart and soul of Iowa State's program. When you watch Iowa State play, they're gonna be really good when they're winning the 50-50 balls, and Tamin is such a huge part of that. Like, he has the best instincts I've ever seen for a player to have a knack for where the ball is headed and get there before somebody else does. And it's that anticipation, that all-out hustle that he provides that really sets the tone for everybody else. And so I think Tamin is, even though Joshua Jefferson's incredible and a lot of things run through him, and Milan Momcilovic is having maybe the best shooting season definitely the best shooting season of anyone in college basketball this year, I think Tamin's still the most important piece of the puzzle.
Another guy who I think's really stepped up, even more so, and he was already an elite defender when he stepped on campus, is Killian Torrey. His defense in that KU game was just fantastic on Saturday. So is he playing like a freshman, or are you seeing him start to really play more polished and clean up his game in all facets?
I think he's gotten better as the season's gone on, for sure, in all facets. But boy, you're right. From the minute he stepped foot on campus, it's like, holy cow, this guy's an elite defender. Because I remember going to practices in the summer just when they're getting started, and he was making life miserable for Tamin Lipsey. And I thought, man, Tamin's going to be really sick of this guy by the time, fall rolls around and practices really get rolling. And so, man, he is relentless with the defensive ball pressure. And he has become better in the other areas of the game. He really works at his three-point shot. He can knock those down. He's not a great three-point shooter, but he can keep you honest out there. He can put the ball on the floor and get to the basket. He's another guy with a knack for where the ball's headed. Both he and Tamin are excellent offensive rebounders for guards. And Iowa State's one of the few teams that will send 2 guards to the offensive glass. And so He gets a lot of extra possessions for Iowa State as well. But I think this year, there's so many great freshmen across the landscape of college basketball and in the Big 12, where, I mean, there's lottery picks all over the place that are freshmen, including 2 that we'll see tonight for Houston. Killian kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. You don't hear him talked about as much as some of the other freshmen. There's a lot of years where he would be the freshman of the year in the Big 12, the way he's played. But he won't even be in the discussion this year because there's so many, and lottery pick type players that are freshmen in the Big 12 conference. So it's, but he has brought something to the Iowa State team, that elite ball pressure that has really made Iowa State better defensively, because it frees up Taman Lipsey to go play free safety and get interceptions and deflections. And Killian will be on the ball, I'm sure, tonight against Kingston Flemings, and that'll be a matchup of 2 elite freshmen in college basketball, and I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, well said. John, can't wait for the call tonight. Appreciate your time as always. John Walters, voice of the Iowa State Cyclones. Thanks so much, John. Be well, man. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, great to visit with John Walters, voice of Iowa State, after their win Saturday against Kansas. And Big Monday tonight. Big Monday, man. It's delivering when you think about the first 4 Big Mondays we've had so far this year. They've been some heavyweight fights, and tonight's will be no different.
Yeah, absolutely. And 2 really physical basketball teams. And again, Houston, they didn't play great against Kansas State on Saturday, and maybe a little bit of a trap game situation there with their gauntlet coming up. Their next 3 opponents are a combined like 68-10 on the season, because they've got Iowa State tonight and then Arizona on Saturday, and then they turn around and play Kansas in Allen Fieldhouse. So we'll find out a lot starting tonight, this week, about these top 3 or 4 teams in the Big 12, starting with Houston and Iowa State tonight in Ames.
Well, and just think about what we've seen so far at the top of the Big 12. Let's take BYU out of the picture here for a second, even though BYU is still elite, but without Richie Saunders, that's going to change a lot for BYU in terms of their ceiling. You look at the top of the Big 12 right now with Arizona, Iowa State, Texas Tech, Kansas, and Houston. And that top 5, Arizona came in a week ago undefeated, 23-0. They've lost twice this week. Texas Tech, you think Duke, Houston, and Arizona have combined for 6 losses. Tech has given those teams 3 of those 6 total losses.
Right.
Kansas with wins over Tech, at Tech, and Arizona. Houston laying in the weeds a little bit here. This has just been, when we think about the top of the Big 12 right now, it's sort of eating itself. I wonder what that means from a bracketology standpoint.
I think the thing that certainly helps the league right now is UConn losing a game to St. John's, a week ago, and Duke losing at North Carolina.
Right.
Michigan seems to be, just an absolute juggernaut right now in the Big Ten, but they still have tough games coming up. I don't think the Big 12 is in a position to lose a 1 seed. I still believe the team that wins either the regular season championship or the Big 12 championship is going to be a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. It's pretty clear that the Big 12, at least the top 5 or 6 teams, is the best conference in America. It's everybody else that you can debate. But I'm hearing from SEC coaches and analysts and ACC guys that, those top 5 teams in the Big 12 makes it the best conference in America. And I don't think the committee's going to lose sight of that when Arizona and Houston still only have 2 losses on their overall resume, and Iowa State only has 3. The reason why I'm so fascinated by this matchup tonight is Houston and Iowa State, number one, they only played 1 time last year. They did not play in the Big 12 tournament. They played in the Big 12 tournament 2 years ago when Iowa State won the Big 12 championship game and blew Houston out. Outside of that, they only met once, and it was at the Fertitta Center in Houston, a game Houston won by 9. But you go back to the previous 3 or 4 matchups, those games were decided on the final possession. They had a 2 overtime game back in 2023. In 2024, it was a 4-point win for Iowa State in Ames. These games go down to the wire because I believe kind of the DNA of both programs is really similar.
Well, and there's 2 undefeateds at home left. Houston is 13-0 at home. Iowa State's 14-0 at home.
Yep.
So should be a fun one tonight. And again, Iowa State and Houston, part of Big 12 Radio on TuneIn, our game of the week. Make sure to download the TuneIn app if you have not yet already. Favorite the channel. And check out tonight's game. John Walters will be on the call. Houston, Iowa State. Tonight, 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern Time on Big 12 Radio on TuneIn. All right, coming up next, chess and checkers. What Tommy Lloyd had to say and what it means big picture about Arizona and Texas Tech. That's next with James Westling. I'm Ari Tepkin. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.